Okay, let's unpack this. Because 3 weeks ago, a 36-year-old woman gave this just heartbreaking, incredibly vulnerable interview.
Yeah, it really was.
Right, she was warning the world about the very real monsters operating in plain sight in Hollywood. And, well, today she is dead.
It's just devastating.
It is. And instead of listening to the actual truth she left behind, the internet has just decided to turn her sudden tragedy into this serialized true crime conspiracy.
Which is, unfortunately, exactly what the internet does best. It's a phenomenal example of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
We are watching society aggressively overwrite a very grounded, very documented reality with a cinematic fantasy.
Because the fantasy is just easier to digest, right?
Exactly. It's much easier to digest a movie villain than a systemic failure.
Right. So I think we need to ground ourselves here before we get completely swept away by the algorithms. Let's establish the mission of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We're looking at the stark contrast between two very different sources regarding the life and recent death of Hayden Panettiere. On one side, we have her final interview on the Jay Shetty podcast discussing her memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning.
Which was so raw.
So raw.
Yeah.
And on the other side, we have this viral video from a channel called Unearthly Enigmas. And it essentially claims she was assassinated by a shadowy Hollywood cabal.
And we really have to look at how we got to a point where a video like that can gain such massive traction.
Yeah, millions of views.
Millions. Because it reveals a lot about how we process sudden death, especially, the sudden death of someone who grew up in the public eye.
Right. Let's try to separate the noise from the actual verified timeline. Hayden Panettiere died at the age of 36.
Just incredibly young.
Yeah. She was found in cardiac arrest. There were 0 signs of physical trauma.
Okay.
Now, reports did indicate that Narcan was found at the scene, and her official cause of death is still pending.
Right.
But the internet took those details, combined them with her recent interview about the dark side of Hollywood, and just immediately started screaming that she was silenced.
And the presence of Narcan is a key piece of why this narrative fractured so quickly.
How so?
Well, medically, Narcan, or naloxone, is an opioid antagonist. It works by rapidly binding to opioid receptors in the brain.
Right, it reverses an overdose.
Exactly. It essentially kicks off whatever opioid is causing the overdose and restores normal breathing.
Okay.
But sociologically, when Narcan is found at a scene, the public immediately jumps to one of two rigid conclusions.
Such a...
Either it was a straightforward tragic overdose, or, if you're in the true crime sphere, it was planted evidence to cover up foul play.
It creates this completely binary way of looking at her death. And I have to admit, it is incredibly frustrating to watch.
It really is.
It's like people are treating a real human being's life as if they just walked into the last 30 seconds of a thriller movie.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
They see a shocking ending, they see this flashy video, and they think they've cracked the case.
Well, and let's talk about that viral video for a second, because the aesthetic of it is entirely engineered to manipulate that exact reaction.
Oh, absolutely. I was watching it, and it feels like a professional mystery documentary trailer.
Yes.
It has this deep, dark, mysterious male voice with a really strong bass.
In a very slow-speaking pace, right?
Yes, with these deliberate pauses before every revelation. It doesn't sound like a news presenter at all. It sounds like someone revealing a secret that's been hidden for years.
And visually, it's all black backgrounds with these deep red highlights on keywords and dates.
Yeah, the visual tension is wild. They never show you the whole document. It's just a slow zoom on a red highlight and then back to darkness.
Which keeps the viewer constantly asking what happens next. It's pacing designed for retention, not truth.
Exactly. It drops a hook, then a clue, then a question, and just builds this endless mystery. But are we really so distracted by this Hollywood conspiracy angle that we're just going to ignore the decades of actual documented trauma she explicitly warned us about?
And that is the exact mechanism of viral rabbit holes. If a shadowy cabal silenced her, then there is a distinct bad guy.
Right, a villain.
A villain you can point to and conceptually lock away.
Yeah.
What is significantly harder for society to sit with is the mundane, agonizing reality.
Which is what?
That she was a woman slowly crushed over decades by the very entertainment systems we all happily participate in as consumers.
Oof. Yeah, that hits hard.
But to understand why the internet is so deeply convinced she was silenced, we do have to examine the specific incident that fueled this entire viral theory.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The narrative anchor for that Unearthly Enigmas video.
Yes.
To understand how we got to these internet conspiracies, we have to rewind to when Hayden was just 18 years old. We have to talk about the yacht incident.
This is a critical moment in her timeline. In her memoir and the interview, Hayden describes being on a yacht in the south of France.
Right.
But the crucial context here is that she wasn't surrounded by strangers. She was there with a woman she trusted implicitly.
Someone she actually viewed as a big sister figure, a protector.
Exactly.
She said she was having a completely normal, great time, no red flags at all.
Until there were.
Yeah. Then, this trusted big sister leads her down a narrow set of stairs, down a hallway, and into a very small private cabin.
And it's presented almost like a fun surprise.
Right, but when the door opens, this woman physically puts an 18-year-old Hayden into a bed.
Just horrifying.
And lying right next to her is a very famous man, completely undressed.
And his reaction is the most chilling part.
Yes. Hayden specifically noted that his body language was so casual, he had his hands behind his head, like this was just an average Tuesday afternoon.
Because for him, and for the system operating around him, it likely was an average day.
Oh.
This wasn't some spontaneous misunderstanding. This was a structured transaction where Hayden was the product.
That's just sickening.
We see this consistently in how power dynamics function in predatory circles. Abusers understand that if a strange, powerful man had approached an 18-year-old directly, her defenses would have immediately spiked.
She would have run.
Right. So they use trusted intermediaries to lower the victim's defenses.
Well, Hayden said her survival instinct, she called it the lion inside of her, woke up.
Thankfully.
Her hair stood on end, she bolted, and she hid wherever she could find a spot on this boat.
Just terrifying.
But she had this horrifying realization that she was literally out to sea. There was nowhere to run to.
You're trapped.
Trapped. And worse, she realized that nobody on that yacht was going to be empathetic to what just happened.
The realization that your protector is actually your trafficker is a psychological shock. It shatters a person's entire framework of reality.
I can't even imagine.
Now, in her book, Hayden refers to this intermediary woman using a pseudonym. She calls her Stella McCamus.
Okay, yes.
And this is the exact point where the viral internet sleuths took over.
Right. The Unearthly Enigmas video immediately points out that there is a well-known Hollywood figure named Diana Jenkins, and her real first name is Sinella.
Okay.
The internet theorists claim Sinella sounds awfully close to the pseudonym Stella.
And we need to be incredibly clear here.
Yes, absolutely. Diana Jenkins publicly and vehemently denied being the woman on the yacht, and she threatened to sue anyone who made that claim.
But the architecture of a conspiracy theory thrives on connecting tangential dots.
Yeah, they don't care about denials.
So the video doesn't stop at the name. It pulls in external artifacts to build its case, right?
Exactly. The video brings up the fact that back in 2009, Diana Jenkins released a very provocative, highly intimate celebrity photo book called Room 23.
And Hayden was in that book.
Hayden was featured in it, yes. For years, the online rumor mill has insisted that this specific photo book was tied to something much darker in Hollywood circles.
Which Jenkins has always firmly denied as well.
Correct. But the viral video packages all of this together, the yacht story, the pseudonym, the photo book, and puts that dark cinematic gloss on it.
To build this massive narrative that Hayden was assassinated for finally speaking out about it.
Right. But let me try to put this in perspective for a second. Think about how an 18-year-old actually processes the mechanics of what happened on that boat.
It's devastating.
It is like someone installing malware directly into your computer's antivirus software. The very program that is designed to block the threat is the one welcoming it through the front door.
That is a brilliant analogy.
If the people positioned to protect you are the ones handing you to the wolves, how do you ever calibrate your internal danger radar going forward?
You don't. Your radar becomes permanently scrambled.
Yeah.
You lose the ability to trust your own instincts because your instincts told you that the person locking the door behind you was safe.
Wow, that is heavy.
But the tragic reality that emerges from her Jay Shetty interview is that this broken danger radar didn't spontaneously fail at age 18 in the south of France.
Well,
no, it was dismantled long before that.
which brings us to her childhood. To understand why she was so vulnerable to these intermediary figures, we have to rewind to a foundation where her boundaries were being erased before she could even string a sentence together.
Which is just heartbreaking.
She started working in entertainment at 8 months old. 8 months.
Her entire developmental window, the years where a human being learns autonomy, boundary setting, and secure attachment,
Yeah.
all of that occurred on professional film sets.
By the time she was 10, she was starring in, remember the Titans? By 18, she was a global superstar on Heroes.
She entirely missed the core experiences of a normal childhood.
Like what, specifically?
The unstructured play, the mundane peer socialization, the ability to fail without a massive production budget depending on it.
And when she tried to step into the normal world, it actively rejected her. She talked about trying to fit in at school, and the bullying she faced wasn't just coming from jealous kids.
It was the adults.
It was the adults. There's this awful story from kindergarten. It was her first day.
Oh, this part was so hard to hear.
The kids are racing to put their crayons away in these plastic wet wipe boxes, and 5-year-old Hayden accidentally shuts the box on another little girl's finger.
Right.
She apologizes profusely, and the teacher looks right at this kindergartner and says, "Oh, it doesn't look like an accident to me."
A trained educator, assuming malice in a 5-year-old, purely because of preconceived notions they held about her as a child actor.
It's insane.
They projected an adult level of calculation onto a literal toddler.
Later on, a substitute teacher humiliated her in front of the whole class, calling her the big cheese just to knock her down a peg.
That is so cruel.
So look at her reality. She has to act like a miniature adult on set, burying any genuine emotion so she isn't labeled unprofessional.
Yeah.
Then she goes to school, where adults project these weird resentments onto her. She kept the nasty notes kids passed about her in a binder under her bed, studying them to figure out how to adjust her performance so they would like her.
What's fascinating and terrifying here is that we're looking at a profound dissolution of self.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about a kid who missed out on prom. We are talking about a child whose fundamental survival, both emotional and literal, depended entirely on people-pleasing.
And the most damaging place that dynamic played out was inside her own home.
Absolutely.
The family dynamic is incredibly tough to read. Hayden's mother acted as her manager, and she set up a corporation.
Right, as a lot of them do.
This corporation paid for the family's car leases. It paid for their cell phone bills, all written off as business expenses.
Funded by a child.
When Hayden was 16, her mother bought an apartment for her, and then the entire family moved into it with her.
Right.
But wait, I need to stop here. Aren't there child labor laws in Hollywood?
Yeah.
What about Coogan accounts? How is a parent legally allowed to siphon off a teenager's earnings to pay for the family's cars?
Well, it is a massive loophole in the industry. Yes, the Coogan Act mandates that a percentage of a child actor's gross earnings must be set aside in a blocked trust account.
Okay, so that money is safe.
Yes, but that only protects a fraction of the income. When a parent acts as a manager, they take a standard commission on top of that.
I see.
And beyond that, by setting up a corporation, the family's entire lifestyle, travel, housing, vehicles, dining, can be classified as business expenses necessary to support the child's career.
Wow.
The spirit of the law is entirely bypassed by corporate accounting.
It flips the entire biological order of a family upside down.
It really does.
It's like she was born as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but she doesn't own any shares.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
She is the product being sold, she is the primary asset generating all the revenue, and she is the lowest-ranking employee taking orders.
All at the same time.
And all of this pressure is resting on a little girl who, by her own admission, was still so afraid of the dark that she made her dad lie next to her in bed until she fell asleep.
That is the exact developmental collapse we see in child stardom. When a child becomes the financial pillar for the adults in their life, love and approval become implicitly tied to performance and paychecks.
Yeah.
The child internalizes a very dangerous lesson. My instincts, my fatigue, my boundaries, and my discomfort do not matter. What matters is keeping the adults happy so the machine keeps running.
She actually said she viewed her mom as her boss. After a take on set, she wouldn't look at the director for approval.
Right.
She would run straight past them to find her mom to make sure she wasn't in trouble.
It's just so sad.
And this all reached a breaking point when she was 19. She finally gathered the courage to fire her mother as her manager.
A huge step.
She went into her trailer on the set of Heroes and said, "I don't want us to work together anymore. I just want you to be my mom."
And her mother's response was, "You owe me."
She walked out. And Hayden realized that the debt her mother was talking about wasn't emotional. It was entirely financial.
Yeah.
At the time of the Jay Shetty interview, they were estranged. Hayden just desperately wanted a mother, and she realized the relationship had been fundamentally transactional.
Which perfectly explains the yacht incident, doesn't it?
How do you mean?
Every time Hayden sought a safe harbor, whether it was her own mother in her trailer or the big sister on the yacht, she was met with exploitation.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because she had no safe harbor at home and her internal danger radar was systematically broken by her family, she was completely unprotected when she stepped outside her front door.
Which made her the perfect target for a predatory external world,
Precisely.
a world that treated her like public property. We really have to talk about the paparazzi.
Yes, the external pressures.
If her internal world was a business transaction, her external world was a war zone. When she was just 16 years old, she was stalked while walking her dogs.
At 16.
She described the sound of the camera shutter clicking as feeling like she was staring down the barrel of a gun.
The physical escalation of paparazzi culture during that specific era of Hollywood was predatory. It was largely unregulated and fundamentally violent.
She talked about how they would box her car in on the street so she couldn't move.
Just trapping her.
Once, a photographer actually kicked her in the back of the leg just to provoke a reaction shot.
Unbelievable.
She had to lie on the floorboards of taxis. She hid under yoga mats in the back of friends' cars.
Just to get some peace.
At one point, trying to outrun them in a rental car, she nearly slid straight into oncoming traffic. She brought up Princess Diana in the interview, asking how this was still legal. And remember, she is a teenager experiencing this.
From a neurological standpoint, how does a teenager's nervous system handle that level of constant hypervigilant threat?
I mean, how does anyone?
It can't. The body cannot sustain that level of cortisol and adrenaline. It desperately looks for an escape hatch, a way to artificially lower the heart rate and numb the panic.
And the industry was more than happy to provide one.
Unfortunately, yes.
She mentioned that before a red carpet event, a trusted team member, again, someone whose literal job was to protect her, handed her pills to calm her down.
Right.
She trusted them, so she took them. That moment planted the very first seeds for chemical coping.
It was sanctioned numbing. When your reality is terrifying and the adults in the room offer you a pharmacological exit rather than actual safety, you take it.
Yeah, you just want the fear to stop.
But the most profound psychological fracturing occurred when she landed her role on the television show Nashville.
This part of the interview is where the ethics of the industry really come into question for me.
Yeah.
She played a character named Juliet Barnes.
Right.
The schedule alone was grueling. 12 to 20-hour days, 10 months out of the year.
Exhausting.
But the real nightmare was that the writer's room began aggressively pulling from Hayden's actual real-time life to write the scripts.
The mirroring was uncanny, and it was deeply traumatic.
As Hayden was struggling in her private life, suddenly her character, Juliet Barnes, is struggling with alcoholism on screen.
Yep.
Hayden experiences postpartum depression in real life.
Sure.
Juliet Barnes gets postpartum depression. Hayden goes through the agonizing reality of being separated from her child. Juliet Barnes abandons her child on the show.
It's just cruel.
Hayden said she had to live her trauma at home and then go to set and act it out, crying for hours on end with absolutely no time to decompress. She said she couldn't tell where Juliet began and Hayden ended.
Right.
She started turning to alcohol to self-medicate her debilitating panic attacks just so her brain could take a vacation. I have to push back on the industry here. I don't understand how this is allowed.
It's a massive ethical failure.
Is it ethical for a television production to actively mine a young actor's active mental health breakdown for script material?
Yeah.
They are monetizing her spiraling reality in real time.
It is entirely unethical, but we have to look at the mechanics of what this does to the brain.
Okay, lay it out for me.
In psychology, we refer to this as occupational trauma. The amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, does not read a call sheet.
Oh,
It doesn't know you are on a soundstage. When you are hyperventilating, screaming, and crying for 15 hours a day, your body is pumping the exact same stress hormones as if the danger were 100% real.
so her body thinks she's constantly in crisis.
Exactly. If you are playing a character experiencing your exact real-life crisis, you are stripped of any psychological safe space. You are trapped in a feedback loop of your own suffering, subsidized by a television network.
Because of that occupational trauma, her nervous system was completely primed for a massive collapse.
Yes, it was inevitable.
And that collapse happened when the lines between Juliet Barnes and Hayden Panettiere completely dissolved in the eyes of the public, which leads us to one of the most misunderstood crucibles she ever went through.
Motherhood.
Yes, the birth of her daughter, Kaya. Hayden had Kaya with Vladimir Klitschko, the heavyweight boxing champion.
Right, Vlad.
She talked about how she had always dreamed of being a mother. She had this perfect, idyllic vision in her head. But when Kaya was born, Hayden felt completely disconnected.
She was suffering.
She was constantly anxious, constantly miserable, and she kept it quiet. because she had never been warned about postpartum depression. No one in her circle had ever talked about the dark side of motherhood.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the isolation of postpartum depression is staggering.
Yeah.
Societally, you are told you should be in the most joyful period of your life, but internally, your neurochemistry has been entirely hijacked.
She said she felt unfixable. She actually went to a treatment facility during a hiatus from Nashville, but they were treating her for alcoholism.
They missed the root cause.
No one addressed the postpartum depression, so she just felt like she was permanently broken. And when she finally did speak out about it, the corporate betrayal was swift and brutal.
This is a glaring indictment of how conditional corporate support really is.
Hayden had been the face of Neutrogena for 10 years, a decade of loyalty.
Right.
She goes on, love with Kelly and Michael, and without planning to, she honestly admits that she is struggling with postpartum depression.
A really brave moment.
But shortly after that interview, Neutrogena fires her. They invoked a morals clause to terminate her contract.
It's disgusting.
I mean, let's unpack the hypocrisy here. Neutrogena and the industry at large ignored her partying. They ignored the paparazzi photos of her smoking. They turned a blind eye to all the destructive behavior that Hollywood deems cool or manageable.
Yeah.
But the moment a woman exhibits unglamorous, genuine pain, the moment a mother admits to a chemical imbalance like PPD, she's discarded and labeled immoral.
Look at the history of morals clauses. They are historically designed for severe public misconduct.
Like what?
Hate speech, violent crimes, major scandals. Applying it to a maternal mental health crisis sends a horrific message.
Right.
It tells struggling mothers that their illness is a moral failing and bad for business. It is a massive institutional failure to protect a young woman who is finally asking for help.
So what does this all mean? I want the listeners to pause here for a second. Think about the headlines you used to read while standing in the grocery store checkout line.
For the tabloids.
How many times did we all passively consume the train wreck mom narrative without once asking what she was actually surviving behind closed doors?
Far too often.
Because that institutional failure fed directly into the cruelest media narrative of her life, the custody of her daughter.
This part is so misunderstood.
When Kaya was around 2.5 years old, Vlad took her to live in Europe. The media instantly ran with the story that Hayden was a deadbeat mom who abandoned her child to go party. But in the interview, she laid out the heartbreaking truth.
The truth was a radical act of maternal sacrifice.
Exactly. Hayden was seeking intense, inpatient treatment for her spirals. She was quite literally fighting for her life.
Yeah.
Vlad was living in Europe, and Kaya had established a life there. She was surrounded by extended family, she had incredible stability, and she was learning 5 languages.
A great environment for a child.
Hayden looked at her own struggle and realized it would be incredibly selfish to rip her daughter away from that stable environment just to satisfy her own ego as a mother.
Which takes immense strength.
She maintained a loving, deeply bonded relationship with Kaya. They FaceTimed constantly. She and Vlad remained close friends. But the media didn't want the story of a mother making a painful, selfless choice for her child's well-being. They wanted the train wreck.
Because the train wreck narrative is highly monetizable. But look at the resulting vulnerability.
What do you mean?
Stripped of her child's daily physical presence and stripped of her professional safety nets, Hayden entered what was arguably her darkest and most dangerous era.
This brings us to the part of the interview where she actually read directly from her journal. She detailed this harrowing experience with the domestically abusive ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, the hamster wheel of abuse.
She said she met him when she had just moved back to L.A. and was profoundly lonely. At first, he was great, but then, triggered by alcohol, this terrifying Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde dynamic emerged.
Right.
She said she would look into his eyes and they would be completely vacant. He would drag her by her hair out of nowhere. No catalyst, no argument, just a flip switch.
So scary.
And yet, she stayed. She stayed because she realized she was more afraid of being alone than she was of being abused. And she thought she could fix him.
She was trapped in what psychology calls a trauma bond. And it's crucial to understand the mechanics of this.
Okay, explain that.
A trauma bond isn't just an emotional attachment. It is a physiological addiction created by intermittent reinforcement.
Intermittent reinforcement.
Yes, the abuser cycles between sudden, terrifying violence and intense apologies and affection. This spikes the victim's cortisol during the abuse and then floods them with dopamine during the apology phase.
Wow.
The brain literally becomes addicted to this cycle of relief.
And what's truly revealing is her own self-reflection in that journal entry. She made the connection between this abuser and her mother.
Yep, she saw the pattern.
She noted that the unpredictable, switch-flipping behavior of her ex-boyfriend directly mirrored her mother's erratic behavior. She had been conditioned from childhood to accept this dynamic where love is mixed with sudden, inexplicable punishment as normal.
Exactly. Her baseline for love was fundamentally intertwined with fear.
She eventually did break the cycle, but she had to call in what she called the heavy hitters, the FBI and the Secret Service, to finally get away from him.
Right, because he wouldn't let go.
He went to jail. But even then, he temporarily weaseled his way back into her life before she cut him off for good. And as if that wasn't enough, amidst all of this, she was dealing with a literal stalker.
Oh, the stalker situation was terrifying.
Not just an overzealous fan, but an unhinged individual who was threatening to decapitate her with a katana sword.
Just horrifying.
He was flying to her speaking events, waiting for her. Again, the FBI and Secret Service had to intervene and put him in jail. In interviews, she mentioned that he had just recently been released, which terrified her all over again.
It is a state of perpetual compounding threat. Her nervous system never, at any point, had a chance to return to a baseline of safety.
And then came the most devastating blow. 3 years before this interview, her younger brother, Jansen, died at the age of 28 from addiction.
Oh, that was just gut-wrenching to hear her talk about.
She called him her other half. She said she had begged her parents to send him to military school when he was a teenager to try and save him from the path he was on.
She tried to warn them.
She saw it coming. She knew the industry, she knew the pressures, and she knew his struggles. And when he died, she carried this massive guilt, feeling like she had failed to protect him.
That survivor's guilt is so heavy.
I have to just stop and point out the sheer physical toll this takes on a human body. How does someone survive this?
Honestly, it's a miracle she made it as far as she did.
You are grieving the sudden death of your brother. You are fighting off a violent abuser. You are hiding from a stalker who wants to take a sword to your neck. And you are separated from your child. And all the while, the paparazzi are snapping photos of you, writing headlines that say you're just partying too hard.
Many people wouldn't survive it. The fact that she survived as long as she did is a testament to an almost superhuman endurance. But we have to recognize the concept of allostatic load. It's the cumulative burden of chronic stress and life events.
Okay.
Her body and mind were carrying the trauma load of 10 lifetimes.
And yet, she kept trying to wake up. In that final interview with Jay Shetty, she was actively trying to start over.
She really was.
She walked into that studio with a big smile. Shetty noted how warm she was, giving these massive embraces to the staff. She literally said out loud that she felt she had shaken off all this darkness.
She seemed so ready for the next phase.
She was excited to write a new chapter, to use her experiences to help other people who were trapped in those same cycles.
It was a beautiful reclamation of her narrative. She was finally in a place where she could articulate her pain, and more importantly, her hope for the future.
But shortly after that interview, she suffered a fatal cardiac arrest at 36 years old. And that brings us right back to where we started.
The internet theories.
The internet immediately fired up the viral theories. They want to believe a shadowy cabal silenced her over a yacht incident when she was 18. They want a grand Hollywood assassination plot.
This raises an important question, though. Why do we need the movie plot?
Right.
Medically and psychologically, we have to look at the facts. While her official cause of death is still pending, we cannot ignore the physiological reality of her life.
The allostatic load you mentioned?
Exactly. The sheer compounding toll of decades of severe anxiety, substance abuse, used to numb unhealed trauma, postpartum depression, and physical abuse takes a devastating, measurable toll on the human body.
It breaks you down.
The heart is a muscle, but it is deeply connected to the nervous system. A lifetime of hyperarousal and chemical dependency can fatally degrade that system. It isn't a mystery. It is the tragic endpoint of systemic extraction.
It's so much sadder than a movie plot.
Mm-hmm.
The truth isn't a conspiracy. She told us exactly what happened to her.
She laid it all out.
The real conspiracy is a society that extracts every single ounce of a person's youth, their mental health, their privacy, and their dignity for our own entertainment, and then judges them mercilessly when they finally break under the pressure.
Well said.
But before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over. We can look back at the early 2000s and easily condemn the paparazzi, the stage parents, and the magazines.
Sure, it's easy in hindsight.
But look at social media right now. Ask yourself, are we just repeating this exact same cycle today with family vloggers and TikTok child influencers? When a child's entire life is monetized for our daily scrolling, who is protecting the next generation's danger radars?